Hello and welcome to a new video in which I'd like to show you a gold farm that I've designed for Infdev Plus. If I move closer, you'll see that this farm utilizes a slime spawner and some termites that have been spawned by the pharaohs staff. That's because these termites killed the slimes, which causes them to drop golden nuggets. And when these slimes die, their slime balls and gold nuggets get compacted by the crafters. Now, this farm produces about 10 golden ingots per hour, and so if you are interested, then I'll be doing a tutorial in this video and also include a download link to this world so you can check that out yourself. Also, one more thing that I'd like to mention is that the reason why I use a slime spawner is because slimes split into smaller ones, which means that you get more mobs, which means I sort of get more mobs every time the spawner spawns, which I believe increases the amount of nuggets that you get. Because for example, if you used a zombie spawner, then you would only get a few zombies spawned. But with slimes, they sort of split into a whole bunch of tiny slimes, so you get a whole bunch of nuggets from them. At least that's how I believe it works. Now, the first thing that you will need to make this farm is a pharaoh staff, which you find inside the Desert Pyramid dungeon, inside deserts or pampas biomes. Now, as you can see, this one is already conquered, so if I go inside, you can find a locked chest with a pharaoh staff if you are lucky, and if you are unlucky you can grind the other loot that you get into tungsten scrap and then craft the pharaoh staff from that scrap. Another thing that you'll need for this farm is a slime spawner that is located at a slime dungeon, which can be found underground in the jungle biomes, the rainforest biome, and its variant, the prairie. Now, to find these, I recommend using the spectacles, because as you can see, these spectacles highlight all mobs, so it also highlights the slime boss, and as you can see in the distance there's another one, and I think that's another one. And the stronghold is a dungeon which you can find inside the plains, rubland, meadow and cherry grove biomes, and if you are lucky you won't find some spectacles inside of it, and if you are not, you can just scrap the other loot and craft these spectacles. And the last thing to get are some name tags. Those can be found inside regular chests, inside dungeons or other places, I believe shipwrecks for example. The reason why I want to get some name tags is because the termites despawn if you leave the area, so you use the name tags to make them not respawn. Of course, it's not necessary to name tag them, as you can just use the pharaoh staff to resummon the termites, but I believe it's better to just name tag them. And now that you have got all of the things that you need, it is time to start building the farm. And for that you will need to first dig a space around the spawner. So 4 blocks above it, 4 blocks to the sides, at 7 blocks below. This is of course because from what I know, the spawners spawns the mobs inside a 9 by 9 by 9 area with it in its center. So you sort of dig out the space so that it can spawn the mobs in a maximum space. And then you also have like 3 blocks at the bottom. That's because the spawner sort of detects the mobs around it, and if there are too much then it won't spawn. So if the slimes are like this at the bottom, then it can still keep spawning others. At least that's what I know about the spawners. But anyway, once you are done with that, the next step is to encase the farm in some blocks, except a block above the spawner. That's because you'll want to reactivate this spawner whenever it burns out, because Infdev Plus has a mechanic where spawners burn out to make farming harder. After that, you place some water source blocks into the corners of the farm so that the items flow into the center, where you will have a hole at the bottom so that the items can get out of the farm, a wall above it so that items can pass through but not the mobs, and some blocks above the wall, sort of, so no mobs end up on the wall, because their drops could end up on the wall. And once you are done with that, you spawn in the termites. I'd say the more the better, as the more you have, the faster the slimes will die, and you won't get any piling up. But at the same time, you shouldn't probably spawn too many, since that might cause lag. And once you spawn them in, you simply rename them to keep them from despawning. Now for the next steps. As you can see, I've copied the bottom part of the farm from there and pasted it over here so I can show things more easily. So now, for the next part, we got some crafters. As you can see, I've placed 2 crafters right below the water stream. One of them is facing into a collector, and the other is facing into a crafter. The one facing into the collector has got some slime balls inside of it, so that it crafts a slime block, and the other one has got some golden nuggets inside of it, so that it crafts some golden nuggets. And this one has got some golden ingots inside of it, so that it crafts golden blocks. Of course, you don't need all 3 crafters. What you can do is you can get rid of the 4th crafter, which has got the golden ingots, and you can simply replace it with a collector, since this farm isn't that fast, as it only produces about 10 golden ingots per hour. For the next step, we'll take a look at the end of the water stream that we got here. As you can see, I've got a top slab there. That's because a top slab will stop the water from flowing any further, but it won't prevent the items from passing through. Of course, you don't need to use a top slab. You can use some signs, open fence gates, and other such things. Next, you want to place a fan next to the top slab. You want to place the fan so that it will be facing towards the water source, so that it would flow any items in front of it into the water source, so that the items would rise up and end up in the farm. It is a chamber of the farm. And lastly, you'll need something to power all of these things, and for that you'll first need to place a detector below the top slab. That's so the items above it get detected, and activate the generator that's sort of diagonally adjacent to the detector. Next to it you want a transformer, so that you get a clock and some gears, some clocks that are one on the transformer, one that's sort of below one of the crafters, and then the other also that's on the bottom of the crafter. And with that, I have explained how to construct this mechanism, so now I'm going to explain why is it made this way. Basically, when the slimes die, their drops end up in this water stream, which carries them over these crafters, and if there's enough space in these crafters, the drops get picked up, and if there's not enough space, then they will continue traveling through this water stream until they end up above this detector, which detects them and activates this generator, which activates several times, because the transformer deactivates it every time it gets activated after a short delay. This means that the crafters will get activated several times, plus spitting out their items, and this frees up space on the inside. And at the same time the generator will activate the fan, which will push the drops into the water where they float up, only to end up in the chamber again, where they'll flow into the center again, only to drop into the water stream again and go into the crafters because there will not be enough space for them. And that is the gold farm. Now there are just a few more things that I like to mention about it. The first thing is that the farm doesn't use too much fuel, so I'd recommend using charcoal since that's renewable, or lava bucket since you can get basically an infinite amount of lava from the Crimson Dimension. Secondly, to operate this farm you should AFK at the hole above the spawner that you've created while building this farm, so that you can reactivate the spawner whenever it burns out. And the last thing that I'd like to mention is that it might be a good idea to sort of have several of these in one place, since you can get several slime spawners in one dungeon. However, if you have several of these, then the difficulty of sort of operating them will rise, since you'll need to reactivate several burned out spawners at once. Plus, you'll have extra costs since you need the extra collectors and the crafters, so it might be a good idea to sort of connect the streams so that they would flow into one. But that's kind of up to you. So yeah, that's the ore farm. Hope you like it, and I'll see you in the next one.